We're talking about ways to improve the city of Hartford, and let's talk a little bit more about real estate. We're talking about some of the developments intended to get people downtown, particularly young professionals. And I want to talk about Hartford as a college town. Many weeks ago you wrote a nice blog about how Trinity College used to be right near the state capitol, where the state capitol is now.
Right.
And imagine if that were still the case. And you're a professor at the University of Hartford. Do you see a lot of your students living in the city?
Well, it's an interesting thing because I also work at Capital Community College, and I'd say that when we're talking about bringing young people to Hartford, they're already here. They're at the Capital Community. So that's who we should be focusing on and really enriching them. But as for the University of Hartford, there's a few brave souls who will come downtown, but most of the students, they live on the campus over on Bloomfield Avenue, and the attitude seems to be Hartford's ghetto. There's no way we're going down there.
So where do they go out for their fun? I mean, I know they go to some bars in the West End and things like that, but...
Well, they go to the bars and they leave. They wouldn't live there.
How is that idea of having students live downtown on Temple Street working out?
The ones who I know who have lived there love it, and they rave about it and they tell their classmates. But many of them, if they're especially first-year students, first time away from home, very tentative, and coming from a very different culture maybe than what's in Hartford, and not ready.
You can't help miss some of the big eyesores when you drive into the city. There's one above I-84. There's one on that curve at the highway. What could be done to just get rid of these buildings and get the owners to take care of them, Ken?
Eminent domain. I think that the mayor and the city council are very reluctant to go after property like that, and I think that if they wanted to do something like that, they could. Unfortunately, Abe Giles owns some of the parking lots around the so-called Butt Ugly building, which is right on Trumbull Street right there, and there's nothing being done to do that because he's a friend of the mayor and they're protecting investments in parking lots and things like that. And what we need to do is be really aggressive in taking out eyesores and be really aggressive in making it a place where people want to flock to, and they're not doing that right now. And I wish that one of the things I think is a problem is the new charter says the next election in Hartford is going to be in 2011, and I think that's a mistake. That's a different ballgame altogether.
How would you all grade the mayor's performance? Carrie?
D- at best.
D-?
Oh, I'd give him a failure. Anytime there's a federal investigation into corruption or a grand jury investigation into corruption, it means you're not doing something right.
Amy?
I've kind of been mystified by Hartford politics after moving here from other areas. So it's just, there seems to be a lock on the political game in town, and if you're not part of a certain group, it's really difficult to get in. And so
yeah, there are two speeds in the city, slow and stop.
Right.
Let's talk about, Hartford is one of the highest rates of teen pregnancy. Many children in the city are being raised by single parents. What could be done? What could the city do, or even the state do to maybe change that?
I don't know. That's not really my area of expertise, but I do think that part of it's cultural in that I don't think that the rate of teenagers having sex is going to be any greater here than out in the suburbs. It's just that there might be different measures to take care of the results.
Well, I think abstinence-only education as pushed by President Bush has been an outright abject failure, and you're not going to stop people from having sex. So what we need to do is educate more, and I think our education system in Hartford is an abject failure as well, and it gets back to, again, as I said before, prenatal care, postnatal care, so that we can stop the cycle of poverty before it starts, giving kids a chance to survive and flourish. It's very difficult to do that when the income is so, income disparities are so great.
There's so much apathy out there, even though, so many people in the area have Hartford on their birth certificate. They come there to work, yet they don't like the city. What could be done sort of to change the attitude a little bit? Why? Well, let me put it this way. Why should people outside of Hartford care about what happens here? Amy?
Many of their employers are here. I think one of the things that could be done is, and I wish we would see this more, is that people take an active role in the community through volunteering. Whether that's if you live in Hartford or you just work in Hartford, just getting involved in a community center, a church, your local neighborhood group, anything where there's youth involved, simply because so they can see a role model and then maybe have some mentoring there. Where because there are so many single-family homes and so much poverty in Hartford, it kind of seems like there does need to be fostering by people that that have time and are able to do that. And I just think a lot of people are kind of somewhat selfish with their time and don't necessarily give back where they could be.
I want to talk briefly about your blogs. How did it start? How often do you write it?
I write it more in the summer when I have a little bit more free time. And I'm not sure how it started. I guess I just needed an outlet, and I wasn't seeing that certain issues touched by the mainstream media, for whatever reason, or covered in the way that I would have liked to. And I see I think there's a real need for neighborhood reporting and being able to go across the street and report on what's happening right there.
Do you know how many hits you folks get at all? Or?
I get about 10,000 unique visitors a month.
Wow.
Which isn't bad, 350 people a day. I mean, it's been pretty steady. When I'm in law school, I can't put a heck of a lot of work into it. I'm lucky if I get a post a week out. My blog started because I have a column in the Hartford News, which is a small newspaper in the South End, and I wanted to be able to publish online, because I think that's obviously where it's going. And I agree with Carrie, where the Hartford Courant has just cut 250 jobs.
Yeah. Does it surprise you, the role of the blogosphere in today's society, Amy?
It kind of does. I'm actually surprised by the number of reporters that I get that call me and ask for my perspective on things now.
Well, you're here, right?
Right. Well, no, but I mean from the Courant and here, obviously, it's interesting that it does get such a positive response, because I have no journalistic training, but people seem to identify with how I write and what I'm writing about. So I just think it's interesting.
When you write these, do you ever think to yourself, who's going to care about this? I mean, does it ever go through your head someday?
Yeah.
Well, I teach writing, so I have to always have that in mind. So I'm always thinking about who my audience is, and it's actually my boss.
Oh, good. Well, folks, thank you very much. Amy Bergquist from William Ravis.
Thank you.
Ken Krajewski, journalist and law student. When do you finish up? It's coming up soon. And Carrie Provost, professor at University of Hartford. You can check out their blogs by going to my blog on WFSB.com.